Take it away.
All right. Thank you very much for inviting me to demonstrate. I enjoy demonstrating. And this subject is kind of dear to my heart because a good friend of mine lost their son at, I think, 7 years old of cancer. And I think this is really a worthwhile cause to make these Beads of Courage boxes. There's a lot of parents and children out there suffering, and we can, as a 503c or whatever it is we are, we're basically required to do a certain amount of community service. When you have that, you can't just be serving yourself. And I have learned through life at my 80 years that you need to give back to the community with which you live in. And I've done that all my life. I've always been active in civic organizations and always giving back to the community in the world. I'm a 35-year member of Rotary International, and we give around the world. We support polio. We've helped eradicate polio, and I give in 6 figures every year to that. And so anyway, not 6 figures, 4 figures. Look, getting carried, can't count my zeros anymore. But anyway, my point is, if you're not doing something to give back to your community, this is really an opportunity to support your fellow man and these children. And I take a trip up to Lake Charlevoix, which is about 45 minutes south of the Mackinac Bridge up in Michigan. And for the last 6 or 8 years, I go to this lumber yard. It's a huge operation. They cut timber, they saw boards, and most of what they cut is either hard maple or some sugar maple, and then a lot of white cedar they also deal in. And I go up there every year in my pickup truck or my van, and I go in and I see the boss in the wood shop there, and I says, can I buy some what they call shards? They'll have a whole pile of 1 and 2 inch thick lumber, 2-3 feet long under the bench, and you buy it for about 10 cents on the dollar of what, so I've got a good supply of hard maple. So I get in there about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, and went in and saw the guy, Mr. Metelsky, and told him what I wanted this for. And he started telling me about his granddaughter and how she's dying of cancer. And he's familiar with Beads of Courage. And he was just so excited to give me wood. So all this 2-inch maple, and I've got a pretty good supply. I hauled all I wanted to haul in my van instead of if I had my truck, I'd have brought more. But he gave it to me. He says, if you're making Beads of Courage boxes, here's some wood. So I've got enough to make 3 boxes here cut up. If anybody is interested, come see me and I'll make some more squares or whatever. I got quite a bit of it at home, and I'll supply you with the maple. And I guess you could stack it all up in maple. But I can't emphasize enough how important, at least it is to me, really a worthwhile cause, because these kids really enjoy collecting these beads as they go through their treatments. I don't fully understand how they get them, but some of these kids will fill a box like this with little beads. Like I've got a bead glued in the top of this. And so, every time they finish chemo. With that, this is a basic box. If you go to Beads of Courage website, they will tell you that they want a box 5 to 6 inches inside in diameter, and they want it minimum 5 inches inside height. This is about 4 7/8 inches deep. I rounded the bottom nice and big. It's probably got a 1 inch radius in the bottom so the bead don't get caught in the bottom so the kid can reach in there and get them out or whatever. The box needs a little more work on finish, I know. They're very particular about what, I mean, the kids might decide to take a bite out of this, chew on it. Not necessarily a bite, but they may chew on it. And so we got to be careful that it's a food safe. I put polyurethane on this. It mentions in that brochure, I prefer, and I use a butcher block oil that Menard sells. It's got a little bit of canuba wax in it. You can get a little bit of a shine to it, but it's food safe, and that would be okay to put on here. But on here, I use polyurethane. Within about 48 hours, that polyurethane is, within 24 hours, it's pretty much dry. But give it a couple more days, and it's completely evaporated out, and there's nothing there that child is going to be harmful to the child. And just a rattle can, and I know some. To get started, one of the ways you can do this is just to stack up of boards, glue them together with, I use Tight Bond 2 as my go-to glue. This doesn't have to be super slick. In fact, you want it roughened up. These have just been run through the planer. I haven't sanded them. And so, that stack up, you can put the lightest colored one in the middle if you want, however you want to do it. But I like to turn the grain every other way, like this one runs crossways, that way, and the other way. Go back and forth with the grain. It makes a much stronger vessel that way. If a kid drops it on the floor, it's less likely to break if you crisscross those grain patterns. I chose to take a shortcut because the Metelskis gave me 2-inch maple, and I had some cherry there. So here it's pretty simple. You only got 2 glue joints, and glue that up. Again, this one's running 90 degrees of what these two run for your grain. Pretty simple. Then some people would say, well, let's take this and just put it between centers and knock them corners off. I don't like that rattle and banging, so I saw it. I saw it round, drill a hole in it, and I drill that hole all the way down to about a 1/2 inch of the bottom. And that tells me when I start hollowing, I know how deep I want to go. It might be more like try to get 7/16, 3/8 down there. But I don't want to go too deep because in case for some reason when I in there with my tenant, I do a lot of things like plates and what have you with holding it with the expansion. And I find it holds pretty good. Only one time have I ever ripped anything out off the chuck with that, and that was my fault. I just had a bad catch. But so anyway, all right, we got it all glued up. We got it sawed out. You guys, I don't need to show you how I do all of this. So then I drill the hole, like I say, to my depth. I put it on a screw in my chuck. I got it nice and flat. The first thing I do is turn the bottom on it and put this recess in it. Take it off of the screw chuck, put it in the chuck, and now I'm ready to turn it. That's a lot. There's a lot of wood in here to hollow out. There's a number of ways to hollow, and I'm gonna hollow this with 3 methods just to show you guys. And I think that's probably in this whole demonstration is how to get all that wood out of there in the shortest amount of time you can. My favorite tool is a bowl gouge, and I use it for stuff, you know, I turn the outside, but anyway, I use a bowl gouge for a lot of my turning. So, all right. You know, we can work like that and, you know, get as much as you can out with your gouge. But then I go to, this is a box scraper, square-ended. I know it's not exactly square, it's slightly angled, but you can take this and really push that in there. That's about what I got. That's lid. Just gonna eyeball that. Yeah, that's probably a big enough opening. I'm getting out there about as far as I want to get out, hanging out over that tool rest. So let's change our method a little bit. This is a robust box tool rest. You can stick that in there, you get support down in there pretty deep. All right. And are you familiar with the gooseneck? You know, you have to be sure and stay, you know, you don't want to get it up on here. You got to stay on this section on your tool rest so that you got your support is straight out from where your cutting edge is. So what I find with this is that this helps keep me flat. I know where I'm at going straight in. Ah, that'll work. One of the problems with hollowing is getting all them chips out of there. I keep saying I'm going to try putting a little tube on here with compressed air and try to see if it wouldn't continually force my chips out for me. I don't know if that'd work or not. Oh, the wall thickness, I try to get the wall thickness down to 3/8 of an inch. That is a little heavy. But ideally, I think if you get that 3/8, in the bottom I'll probably leave close to a 1/2 inch. Doesn't really need to be a half. Maybe I'll take that to 3/8 too. But anyway, well, just in the interest of seeing how that, if some of you haven't seen the Lyle Jamieson system, we'll set up, and This is what's called the Little Hogger, and it's sold by Ron Campbell at AZ Carbide. You go to Ron Campbell up in Michigan, AZ Carbide, you can Google it, and he will fix you up with a little hogger. And this has, other than like most carbides, it's not flat. It is it's concaved, and it will really hog. You got to be real careful with it, or it'll grab and get away from you. Are we about center? Probably close enough. Now, when you use this, you want to have it slightly below center and rolled a little bit down. You know, it's cut a little better. Is set up how deep we want to cut. So we set this little laser here. All right. There we go. You can set that. Let's set it at about a 1/2 inch for now. Okay. Have you got the camera on where you can see see the red spot on the?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll do a little hollowing here and see what we can do. I just find it going back and forth, I can haul more material out. I think it's all about preference, what works best for you.
I don't think you mentioned it, but when you noticed Ken was doing the setup there and he had the little white card with the line on it, that told him how thick he wanted that wall to be. So he took that white card and he drew a line 3/16, 1/4 inch, whatever.
Well, I got it set on about 3/8.
Okay, set on 3/8. So that 3/8 is where he sets the laser so that he knows his tool head is 3/8 of an inch back of that laser dot. So whenever that laser dot falls off the side of that piece, he's got a 3/8 wall thickness because his cutter's 3/8 of an inch back.
Yeah.
He's in luck there because his walls are straight. If he was turning a piece where the walls had some curvature to it, then you gotta kind of, as you move down that curve, readjust so that you're cutting perpendicular to that line each time.
That's true.
So he would cut a ways, then he would reset the laser with the angle of the card this way, this way, this way as he goes down. So
Correct. Right. It's a whole lot less. I mean, when I was trying to use that carbide flat cutter in there, I was taking a lot of effort to hang on to the tool and, you know, gouge that out of there. Here, this is a breeze. Just stand there and bring it up there. So it's just, you know.
So the system Lyle has set up there with that arm being taken off by that big crossbar gets rid of all that torque that he would normally have to compensate.
And then I have a 1 inch bar and longer. You can, you know, I've hollowed 19 inches deep. I've hollowed with this. You have to kind of adjust yourself a couple of times, but I have actually gone 19 inches deep with this system. Sometimes I lay my arm on here just enough to take that vibration out. The other thing, I forgot my wax. I usually put some wax on here, wax in here to make this slide easier.
So can you go back to that initial cut and maybe just show how the laser drops off the side when you got the wall thickness? So right in there, he's getting very close. Then the laser, you can't hardly see it because of the overhead, but it just drops off.
Well, that's interesting.
And then he quits.
You guys get the idea how when that falls off of there, I'm getting pretty close to it right in here. It gets real long, and finally you'll see it on the ways or wherever you're at. But all right, I don't want to bore you with standing here hollowing for another half hour. So let's see, we got the box hollowed. We now want to make a lid to fit that. Now for most of you, you're probably going to have a different way to hold this. This is kind of a expensive way to do this. But I hate changing jaws. So now we're going to make a lid. So you might put that between centers. You might hold it with cold jaws on your smaller chucks and put cold jaws on it. But I've been fortunate enough to keep when somebody says there's an estate sale out there, and I hear that he used Vic Mark chucks, I think I paid $100 for this chuck. Go back to my favorite tool again, my bowl gouge. Get that faced off. This is the bottom of the lid. We got to recess that in a little bit. We'll make it a little low in the center just to take a little wood out of it. I think I'm a little high. Okay, well, let's establish our diameter there. I also like to pick up used tools. So this tool is ground at the same angle as my jaws. Outside of this jaw angle is, I think that's 15 degrees. So I'll come in here and establish where we're going to chuck that. A little small yet. You want to keep that tenant, if you want to call it a tenant, reverse tenant, as close to your jaws. You visualize the jaws on your chuck close together to within 3/32 to 1/8 of an inch. Because that's going to give you the most surface area to grip on. Still a little small. We won't work with, let's see how flat we are. I guess that's pretty good. Way. Good enough. So I got a crack in there. Why did you fill that crack with CA glue? I don't know. All right, now we want to come in and fit the box. Cut our groove for our box. Line your tool up with the ways, cut you a straight edge there, and then try to get this pretty flat here. I can refit it to that other one later. About the right wiggle. Sometimes you get lucky. All right. Well, it's a bad piece of wood. All right, now I think we'll turn that around. It could have been that's fine. That's about 100 thousandths between the cracks on the chuck. So there you go. That was good. That's a lobble come off of there. Yeah, slight shave over this edges. Way too big. Okay, I'd like to make that lid thinner, but with the crack that's in it, I'm afraid it might come apart. So for now, we're going to leave it the way it is. The handle's probably a little big for a child's hand. Those Forstner bits, for the most part, are just carbon steel. They're not high speed, and for one this diameter, about 500 RPMs is about as fast as you want to turn it. So we'll drill a hole in here for the pocket, about that deep. Box tool that's square on the bottom, and open that up to the size and depth that we need. I know, Charlie, I didn't turn it off. So this is square, or close to square. You can go in there and just turn that out to about, and flat bottom that. And now you got to pop the, what I do is sand it and varnish it and then glue the bead in. All right, any questions?
Is there a dimension for how large the hole needs to be on top for the child to put their hand in?
I did not find that dimension. I'm making it about 4 1/4. It just looked good. You know, sometimes you got to do things based on eye appeal. Let your mind's eye decide while you're making it. Say, yeah, that looks good. And they really don't have. I tell you what, there's a Richard Rafferty, I think it is, has a. If you go to Beads of Courage, and from Beads of Courage, you can go to Richard Rafferty's Beads of Courage box, and he makes this box, what I just did. And I don't recall that he said what that diameter is, but he might. I may have slept through part of that. It was after dinner when I watched it. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. I hope